Hello, my friends, and welcome. My name is Dennis, and today it's not the latest update from Ukraine. Today we have interview podcast with Jake Broe, who is a friend of the channel and who does lots of the stuff helping Ukraine and also raising awareness worldwide about the conflict, or the war, it's better to say, which Russia started against Ukraine. Jake Broe, hello.
Dennis, how are you doing today? Good to see you
Yeah,
again.
good to have you here on our podcast interview. I have just some of the questions audience asked. I asked my audience um to ask the questions from you, and we have a couple of them. Usually discuss the Ukraine, Trump, and what is happening in general. So you ready to go?
Um, I don't want to say yes, but I think we're going to do it
Okay.
anyways.
Yeah. At first, before we start, I want to share my thanks to you because you just started one more fundraise, one more huge campaign to raise $1 million. As far as I remember, it's your third time, yeah? Then you
This is the fourth.
a
So
fourth
last
time.
year
It's
on my
crazy.
channel with the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade, we did three different fundraisers. One for my birthday, one for the
Hmm.
1,000 days of the war, one for Christmas. And this is my fourth. We're calling it Invictus. And once again, within 7 days, just like the previous three, our YouTube channel fundraised over $1 million. It's still active, it's still going. If anyone wants to contribute or get one of our campaign patches, but I don't know any other YouTube channel consistently fundraising $1 million every couple months.
Yeah, yeah, guys, and the link I will put also in the video description below. Please join support the initiative from Jake Bro because he's definitely supporting Ukraine and our warriors really need it, especially now. We don't know for how long Ukraine will continue to receive the military support. So we are from worldwide, we can support Jake Bro with initiative from NAFA. And yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Jake, for your fundraise. Really extraordinary. And what was the goal for your first fundraise? As far as I remember, it wasn't like $1 million or dollars or something.
For my birthday, I was turning 40. So I
Hmm.
thought, well, why don't we fundraise $40,000? That was what other social media personalities had been doing. There are lots of channels like Dimitri with War Translated or
Hmm.
Special Hersan Cats or Noel Reports. There are other people who have Twitter channels or YouTube channels that do fundraisers. And I think the largest to that date was about $200,000, and that was Artur Rehi.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
didn't know what to expect, and I just said, okay, well, it's my 40th birthday. Let's do $40,000. My secret goal in the back of my brain was, what if we could get 100,000? That would be incredible. And we hit, I mean, $80,000 within the first day, and I realized, well, if I keep talking about it, maybe we could get this up to, break the record, which was Artur Rehi, close to 200,000.
Hmm.
And we hit 200,000 within the second day, and I said, we just kept changing the amounts. We got to 500,000, we got to 600,000. And the guys at the 69th Sniffing Brigade, I mean, they were going crazy. They had never seen anything like this. And I think it was the combination of my birthday, people wanted to be
Hmm.
generous, but also this was about the same time that Mike Johnson was blocking a vote in the House of Representatives, and the city of Avdiivka had just fallen. So I think a lot of people just felt like they wanted to contribute or do something in frustration to my government. And it took off, it hit 1 million. And now that we've done this, we know it's possible, and my YouTube community just keeps repeating, and it's incredible. I can't describe how amazing this is as a feeling, knowing that I'm making a difference with all these trucks and drones.
Yeah, you really do a great, great job, Jake, bro. Just awesome. And it was also a surprise for me that you hit 1 million for 40 days. And as before, Mike Johnson was blocking initiative for support of Ukraine. The similar stuff is happening now. It happened like last week, I guess. Then Donald Trump blocked the military support and sharing intelligence information. So we are very in close proximity, and we don't know what might happen next. Like, I'm not sure that Donald Trump would really support Ukraine from the military perspective with his own initiative, you know. So Biden packages will be wasted this year, not wasted, but spent, let's say. What is next? Like, no one knows. So Europe has time to reinforce, but before that, only volunteers may support Ukraine with drones, with vehicles, and yeah, you really did a great job. Let's start from our main, like main news topic for the last few days, or maybe months already, the peace negotiations. There were some calls between Trump and Putin, Trump and Zelensky. Groups are meeting in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. First, we spoke about full ceasefire. Now it's the partial ceasefire. And we understand that Putin is coming with his own demands again and again. I don't know, maybe searching for excuse not to really follow the peace deal. What are your really thoughts about all of that?
Ukraine didn't want to offer a total ceasefire. Donald Trump more or less forced them by cutting off military aid and intelligence sharing. So since March 11th, President Zelensky has been willing to sit down and negotiate with Putin and has offered a total ceasefire across the front lines, at least temporarily, like a 30-day temporary one. And the Russians have been rejecting it. The Russians have been stalling. The Russians have been delaying. They talked in Saudi Arabia and said, okay, we'll do a partial ceasefire in the Black Sea and on energy infrastructure. Russia believes this disproportionately benefits them. And they can't even do that. Like they won't even adhere to that. Now Peskov said yesterday, well, it's not in effect until all sanctions on our banks are lifted. And of course, the United States can't do that for Russia. That would require banks in Belgium to
Mhm.
reconnect Russia to the SWIFT network. And the European Union is saying we're not doing that until the Russians leave all of our territory. So I do think Donald Trump would like to see a temporary ceasefire so that he can say he accomplished something like a campaign promise made and then kept. I don't think Trump cares if the ceasefire holds. I don't think he cares if the war resumes. If Trump got his choice, then Putin would stop these wars until Trump leaves office or dies of natural causes, and then he doesn't care what happens. This is all about his personal relationship and reputation with Putin, and he doesn't care about what happens to Ukraine or the Ukrainian people in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. It's all about short-term optics, and I don't really view Donald Trump as being like a normal human being anymore. Like I think he's been in this campaign mode for over a decade now in US politics, and he just thinks about how does this look on social media? How does this look on TV? And I mean, you can just see this daily. He doesn't care what actually happens. He only cares how the media spins it or how people talk about it on social media. We can get into this, how really human culture has been transformed by social media, but unfortunately, I believe there's a lot of people in my governments who no longer live in reality. They only live on social media and they only think about how it looks or how it plays out or how many followers or likes or retweets they can get saying some outlandish or crazy thing. Like, yeah, humans, in my opinion, are evolving with technology, with social media, and this is transforming our politics. And in the real world, you know, people are dying in this war, and I don't think we have serious leaders here in America actually trying to stop it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really think that he's even looking for any sort of the format for security guarantees, especially with this mineral deal. Now it's the total uh, theft deal against Ukraine, including gas, oil, everything, coal, natural resources, everything. I
Let's
so you,
can I
yeah, yeah.
give the details because I just I mentioned this in my video yesterday.
Mm-hmm,
This revised mineral deal. There's so many poison pill provisions
mm-hmm,
that Trump deliberately designed it so Ukraine would have to reject it. Trump right now is looking for a reason to be offended by Ukraine. He's looking for a reason to be upset by President Zelensky, and I think he deliberately sabotaged this mineral deal because the version before from 3 weeks ago was decent. It was a joint cooperative in which Ukraine and the United States had an equal stake in developing Ukraine's natural resource extraction industry. But the new version is outlandishly lopsided in America's benefits. And we'll just go through some of the obstacles. One, the United States is saying all previous military aid was a debt that Ukraine has to repay, and the number given in the contract was $100 billion. Trump has been saying, we've given Ukraine 250 billion for the
Yeah,
last couple months, but okay, I guess Trump is not going to say 250 anymore. Now he's going to say 100, when really you could even dispute that. It's actually lower when you account for the value of what's been given, not the value of what we're paying ourselves to replace in modern equipments the outdated stuff we're giving Ukraine. But there's going to be 4% annual interest compounding on that $100 billion debt until the debt is repaid from the fund. So if this war drags on or Ukraine struggles to develop, and like Ukraine is going to owe the United States $4 billion in interest this year on a $100 billion debt that Ukraine never agreed to. Ukraine never agreed to go into debt for military assistance from the United States. It was a grant. It was Congress voting saying, we believe Russian aggression should be halted. This is in America's best national security interest. We are donating. We are just freely giving military aid and assistance to Ukraine to stop Russia. So Trump is trying to revise this and make a profit for America, make money off of a war, which I don't view as ethical. So that's one provision. Two, this is no longer a co-venture. There'd be a five-member board. Trump would appoint the three Americans, and then I'm assuming Zelensky would appoint the two Ukrainians. But the three members of this board could be Elon Musk, JD Vance, and Tucker Carlson. And they're going to vote for any decision related to how these funds are allocated. So you can't trust who America would appoint. There's other provisions like all funds are going to be kept in an American bank account, not in Ukraine. The United States will have first rights to all the minerals. You mentioned previously the mineral deal was just minerals, but now it includes oil and gas to include private companies. Private companies have to give up their revenue now. It's not just state resources. What are some of the other ones? American companies get first rights to bid on certain projects, which would violate EU law, which could potentially prevent Ukraine from joining the European Union. Like this was designed to fail. Donald Trump deliberately designed this so that Ukraine would have no option, no ability to go along with it. Donald Trump can then use that as justification for cutting off and rejecting any kind of future support for Ukraine.
yeah, because I think the only option actually of the deal was to justify the further military support, I think.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, the whole
without,
point. So last October, Zelensky's peace plan, it was like 4 or 5 points. One of them was mineral resources to continue purchasing future military aid. Like when Zelensky brought this up, and I think it was Senator Lindsey Graham who spoke to
Mhm.
Zelensky and told him, "Hey, Trump might be interested in a minerals deal." But the minerals deal was always for purchasing future military aid, not to repay what was
Mhm.
allocated under Biden. There's no security guarantees. Like it's completely pointless at this. Europe should offer Ukraine a better deal. That's my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Jake, bro, do you think that like you're not Trump supporter? I understand that. Me too. Even before the elections, you forecasted that this choice that we have right now in the United States may negatively influence Ukraine allies. So you was right, right? But did you expect that, or like your expectations fully achieved, or you expected worse or less worse? I don't know. Try to like your compare what you expected before elections and what you have right now, and also comment if your personal life, because you're United States citizen, if it changes somehow. Like you, we all see what is happening on social media, but maybe something is changing in lives of ordinary Americans since Donald Trump was elected.
Remind me of the second half, the second
Okay.
part of that question, but I'll start with the first. And I know people were unhappy with Jake Sullivan. I mean, it feels like forever ago, doesn't it, that everyone
Yeah, yeah,
hated
yeah,
Jake
yeah.
Sullivan, the national security advisor. But I said we have to go with the devil you know rather than the devil you don't know, because the United States was still providing military aid, and Biden was supportive of Ukraine, even if he had limitations and restrictions, and it was frustrating, and he wasn't all in. And I was trying my best to stop Trump from getting elected here in the United States, not based on what Trump was saying, because Trump never says anything. If you asked him about Russia and Ukraine during the campaign, he just repeats himself saying, "Well, if I was president, this never would have happened." That's all he said.
Yeah, and
Uh,
finish
but
the
based
war in
on
24
but
hours.
based on the
Yeah.
statements of his son, Don Jr., based on the
Mhm.
statements of Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Vivek Ramaswamy, JD Vance, Tulsi Gabbard, like just the people surrounding Trump that I knew were going to be in Trump's government, I said, these people are all pro-Russian. They hate Ukraine. And if this is who Trump chooses to surround himself with, I don't care how much you like Trump, he's going to be influenced and it's going to affect his decisions. And initially, those first couple weeks, well, Trump starts announcing cabinet positions in December and January, and he was saying decent people at first. Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, that in the past he's been critical of Russia, pro-Ukraine. Mike Waltz, as National Security Advisor, was very pro-Ukraine. Keith Kellogg, who is supposed to be the negotiator, the
Yeah,
special
yeah,
envoy to Ukraine and Russia. And there was a genuine battle and debates between, I would call them traditional Republicans, even though they're still MAGA, they're still Trump supporters, but the traditional national security conservatives, if we can call them that. And they lost. They've been completely defeated. They've been steamrolled. The person in charge of MAGA, in charge of the country, is Elon Musk. And Elon Musk has lost his goddamn mind. The guy has gone Howard Hughes insane. And it's obvious to see on television. So, your question, did I think it would be this bad?
yeah.
And no, I didn't, because of all the other stuff that Trump never mentioned, never talked
Hmm.
about during the campaign. He deliberately lied and kept this all a secret until after he was elected.
Do you mean Greenland?
The Yes, the invasion of Greenland,
Okay.
the invasion of Canada, ethnic cleansing
Mm.
in the Gaza Strip to turn it into a casino luxury resort town, subjugating
Canada.
Canada into
Hmm.
becoming a resource colony. Like, he never talked about this. No American in November voted for this. And you can look at the public opinion of polling of MAGA. Ignore
Yeah, yeah.
independents, liberals, Democrats. Republicans, MAGA hates this talking about. Like, I saw the poll this morning. Only 24% of Americans support the idea of invading or annexing Greenland. They don't understand why we're doing this. And
By the
it's
way,
Elon Musk.
Jake, what's your opinion about what's the reason? Like Greenland, okay. Natural
Money,
resources, money,
natural
money.
resources.
Okay.
They're lying. They're saying it's about security concerns. We need to take Greenland for
Hmm.
national security. And my attitude is, who's the threat? Security from who? China does not have access to the Arctic Ocean. The only people in the Arctic is Canada, Norway,
Yeah.
Greenland and Russia. So if you're saying we need Greenland because of a security threat, the only threat that could be is the Russians. And if you think Russia is a threat, then supporting Ukraine is the best thing we can do to guarantee America's security from our threat in the Arctic. I mean, MAGA will make up stuff about Chinese ships, but it's all nonsense. Like the Chinese have no presence in the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just the Russians, the Norwegians, the Canadians, and then Denmark and Greenland. And it's a land grab. It's a resource grab. It's not about national security. Elon Musk thinks he's going to get more natural resources for his companies, and that's all it's about.
Yeah, yesterday I recorded a video about Greenland that it's actually hard to get resources from Greenland still. It's frozen mostly. Weather conditions are not that great. And what China does, they provide their influence elsewhere in Africa. In Africa, there is oil, diamonds, everything. Like, and it's very, very easy to get it from the ground and ship across the Indian Ocean to China. So, and now United States, they're losing their influence by cutting, even humanitarian support for those countries, third world countries, USAID and everything. So China, I guess China will be great again, 100% under Trump,
What was the second
unfortunately.
half of your question? I
Yeah,
told you,
your personal life, did it change? Like,
oh, yeah, has my personal life been
yeah,
affected
with
since
Trump.
Trump
Yeah,
came
yeah,
into
yeah.
office? Maybe
Oh,
I'm not a good sample because, I just stay home all day every day making YouTube
mm,
videos. But I what I'm hearing from people is people who hate politics or people who hate Donald Trump. They're just cutting these people off. Like MAGA is insane. These red hat
mhm.
wearing, vaccine denying, like they live in an alternate reality. They live on social media. They live on 4chan or Truth Social or Twitter,
Signal.
Signal chats, yeah. And they don't live in reality. They don't accept
Mhm.
facts. Like it's terrifying what's happened over the last decade because this has been a 10-year project where Donald Trump has convinced tens of millions of Americans to hate and ignore journalists, hate and ignore scientists, hate and ignore professors, university professors, hate and ignore experts on anything. If you are a degree holding expert on any topic, MAGA has been trained to despise, hate, and reject those people to instead get their truth from social media influencers, people who didn't go to college, people who don't have expertise. Doge is made up of teenagers,
Yeah, yeah,
19-year-olds going through the US Treasury Department just copying and deleting stuff. How is this okay? And it's because tens of millions of Americans are lost. They've gone down the conspiracy rabbit hole and they think everything is a conspiracy now.
yeah,
That's how
yeah,
Joe
yeah.
Rogan became the number one podcaster in the world, just promoting conspiracies. And I think there was a significant percentage of MAGA who said, the deep state was holding Trump back the first term. Let's bring Trump back and he'll tell us the truth. He'll tell us the truth about September 11th. He'll tell us the truth about JFK
Kennedy. Yeah,
assassination. He'll tell us the truth about aliens in Area 51. He'll tell us the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. And Trump has been president for over 50 days now. And we've gotten no conspiracies confirmed. The largest, was the moon landing faked? Is the earth flat? What are chemtrails? Like, it's so stupid what these people believe. Everyone, according to MAGA, is a secret pedophile who drinks blood in the basement of pizza shops. Like, these people have completely lost their minds. And
mhm.
my answer to them, my comment to them is Trump's president. The deep state has been destroyed. You can have your truth now. You can confirm all of these conspiracies, and nothing's being confirmed. There is no truth. Nothing is being revealed by Trump and his team. If the deep state is real, all they've done is replace it with themselves.
Yeah, I guess.
MAGA is just as corrupt and tyrannical as any conspiratorial deep state was here in the United States. And these people have to, at some point, come around, and it's happening. Trump's approval rating every day drops, his disapproval rating goes up. A lot of people are having buyer's remorse and regret about the November election. And I think for a lot of people, it was also just economic. Inflation was bad, and people are struggling to pay their rent in America, and they wanted cheaper eggs. And Donald Trump lied to everyone and said he could do it all. And once again, he's not doing anything.
Yeah, and he continued to say about Joe Biden, like then even then he's elected, he continued to recall Joe Biden almost every day. I think he was really harmed back in 2020 that he lost to Joe Biden. His like personal complex. Do you think that we have the way out from this situation in the 4 years? If there is some way out, do you think there is?
When you say do you mean we as Americans
Yeah,
domestically or
yeah.
we as
Like,
Ukraine or what
do you see the way out from as American? Do you think that I don't know, Trump can like, well, Trump's team, let's say, may lose next elections, or maybe they will change something in the United States government to.
So one of the, we call these guardrails of democracy here in the
Hmm.
United
Hmm.
States,
Hmm.
and Elon Musk and Donald Trump are trying to destroy and dismantle all of them. They're trying to
Hmm.
create an autocracy, a unitary state with an all-powerful sovereign executive. They basically want what Russia has, where the guy in power has final say on everything and stays in office forever. So the thing that is protecting us at the moment here in the United States is federalism, in that the states are their own separate governments. We have 50 states with 50 separate governments, and they have their own state legislatures, state courts, and state executives. These are the governors. And the governors here in the United States are much more powerful than, for example, the governor of an oblast in Russia.
Yeah,
I don't even think they have direct
yeah, yeah.
elections for governors in
No,
Russia. I think Putin just appoints them.
Putin appoints them. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Putin didn't appoint them, and instead Russia had a federal system in
Hmm.
which you had to have elections in those oblasts, then the oblasts would be more powerful and independent. So for what's going to happen here in the United States is the states are just going to stop listening to the federal government. The state of New York, the state of California, the state of Wisconsin, they're just not going to listen to whatever. Like if Donald Trump tries to declare martial law and suspend elections, the state of Illinois is just going to say, "Screw you. We're still going to have our election. It's our election. What are you going to do? Send in active duty troops to fight the National Guard of Illinois?" This is
Hmm.
in the United States, the president cannot deploy active duty troops in civilian domestic cities. To have a military response in a city or a state, the governor has to activate the National Guard to put boots on the ground. And this is something that I don't know what Donald Trump is going to try and do. I think if he tried to order active duty troops to seize a state capital that's in rebellion, well, now we would have National Guardsmen defending a state capital against active duty troops. And American soldiers are not going to fire on American soldiers. That just isn't going to
Hmm.
happen, especially when it's a unconstitutional, illegal order coming from the White House. So we're still having state governments function like normal because Elon Musk doesn't control them, and they're going to continue having free and fair elections. And I don't
Okay,
know, maybe
so
Mike Johnson and Trump will say we're not going to recognize your congressman anymore. They're just going to be expelled from Washington D.C. Like it's going to get stupid and weird,
wow.
but I do think over the next 4 years, America is going to outlast and survive Elon Musk and Donald Trump and whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, maybe it will wave to the other side, more to the left side, for some time after Donald Trump. We'll see. Like,
This isn't a left-right ideological
mm-hmm,
battle. This isn't about political issues on the left or the right. What America is fighting for right now is, do we want to remain a democracy
mm-hmm,
or do we want to become an autocracy?
mm-hmm,
I think a solid 25% of Americans want a dictatorship as long as they can get rid of immigrants, get rid of LGBTQ people. They can,
I see.
destroy public universities and cancel all vaccines. Like these people are just nuts. I don't know what to say.
Jake, do you think that support of those conspiracy theories is the outcome of the lack of the education, or I don't know?
I, so there's always been uneducated people in the United States.
Hmm.
Really, you could argue that the education level of the average American today is probably the highest it's ever been
Hmm.
because we have the internet.
Oh yeah,
Just think about, 30 years ago, if you wanted to know something, you wanted to learn something, how'd you do it? You went to the public library and checked out a book? Like, that's so weird to think about. But
yeah.
today, especially with AI, if you want to learn something, understand something, get the truth, get a fact, just pull out your phone, pull up a web browser, and you can get that information. The problem is that our societies have been advancing faster than I think people are
Yeah,
capable
yeah,
of
yeah.
learning. Like the world is just getting so much more connected and complicated that the average person feels overwhelmed. Like what you needed to know to survive 100 years ago as a farmer in Iowa, you didn't need to know that much to make sure that you planted your crops, you had a good harvest, and then you survived through the winter. So I think the human psychology hasn't caught up. And the quote that I want to share with you, Dennis, everything is a conspiracy when you don't understand how anything works.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you don't understand human biology and how vaccines work, you're susceptible to conspiracy theories. If you don't understand how it's possible for a man to go to the moon in 1969, you're going to believe in conspiracy theories. So MAGA and Trump have preyed on people's ignorance to tell them the deep state, the establishments, the scientists, the journalists, the professors, the bureaucrats, they're all out to get you. They're all out to screw you. And I'm the only one that can defeat these
yeah, yeah.
people. I'm the only one that can destroy these people and then create a new golden era of America, which we're
Yeah,
now in.
they
To
found
my
the
fellow
enemy.
Americans, how are you enjoying the new golden era in which we're no longer listening to all the most successful and educated people in the country?
Yeah, it's like creating the enemy in those, immigrants saying that, yeah. Actually, in Europe, there is also like this wave, kind of not, I would say, pro-Trump wave, but I can call it the right wave, all right? So it is happening, as we know, in Hungary. Slovakians in democratic election elected Fico. Um, so yeah, there is also like AfD was also got more votes than usual in Germany. So the trend is not good in general. But I think in the future, like it's the last song they sing right now, as for me. At least I hope like that. Um, so about Trump and Putin. Trump continued to sugarcoat Putin despite Putin almost openly saying that he's not okay with this peace deal, with new demands, excuses to continue the war and strikes on Ukraine. Do you think they work together, or like what's the reason of that?
In the comments section, everyone keeps saying Krasnodar or whatever his
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
KGB name
Limited.
was. The first time Trump went to Russia, which was the Soviet Union, it was like 1987, 1988. There's this reports that he was recruited by the KGB and he's been an undercover agent for 35 years or whatever. I don't believe that. Did the KGB try to recruit him or talk to him? Sure, but he's too stupid to comply with like structured commands or orders. So Trump, you don't have to make this more complicated than it is. Trump just respects power and control and wealth. And that's something that Vladimir Putin has probably more than any other person in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Putin has been stealing the wealth of Russia for 26 years, really for 30 years if you count his time as deputy mayor of St. Petersburg. And Trump respects that. To steal hundreds of billions of dollars for yourself over 30 years and to completely get away with it, to never be held accountable, Trump just is in awe of his ability to steal wealth. Trump is jealous. And then staying in power, I understand he had to temporarily switch with Medvedev for one term, but really Putin was still in power in control of the country as the prime minister. So being able to stay in office to kill, exile, and imprison all of your political rivals, Donald Trump wishes he could get away with that. He wishes he could do what Putin has accomplished. And then the fact that Putin has gone to war, and where's the civil unrest? Where's the rioting? Where is the rebellion inside Russia?
Yeah, the
Hundreds of
society is flattened there. They're not reacting. They're like very volatile, you know.
hundreds of thousands of
Mhm.
Russian men are willing to kill for Putin, willing to die for Putin. Trump loves that. Trump wishes he
I think
had
they,
American men who would kill
I
for
think
him, who would die for him.
they like to kill and die for rubles,
Money. Yeah.
rubles. Yeah, 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 for money.
They
That's
don't
the.
have to do it.
Hmm.
They can say they're doing it for money, but at the end of the day, they're doing it for the dear leader. They're doing it for Vladimir Putin. So Trump cannot think like a normal human being anymore.
Hmm.
He only thinks in terms of power politics, hard power. And he sees what Putin has accomplished, and he is desperate for Putin's approval. He just wants Putin to flatter him, Putin to say nice things about him, Putin to promote him, you know, uh, show him his cool stuff. Like when billionaires get together, they show each other the penthouses, their super yachts, their mistresses, their diamond encrusted toilets. I don't know. These people are insane. And Trump just loves, respects, admires, and worships Vladimir Putin and wants to be publicly viewed as Putin's equal or superior. Superior is what he really would like, but he would settle for being Putin's equal as far as hard power. That's it. That in a nutshell is all Donald Trump thinks about is how can I get praise, approval, adulation from this mass murderer.
I see, Jake. Jake, and sometimes in our videos we say about how bad the Russian economy really is, um, problems with in army, with military production, even with armored vehicles and so on. Korea has to send their ammunition, their soldiers even. But Russia is still there. They're still fighting. They're getting the ground under control in many of the points of the front lines. They pushed away Ukrainians from the Kursk region, or maybe Ukraine did it on its own, like it was the order to withdraw. But nevertheless, Russia is successful. Let's say they still keep initiative in general. So people ask, do you think that Russian economy really will collapse or not? Or it's just a hoax that we are speaking about in our videos?
The best thing that Russia ever did was give up communism and switch to capitalism. And with capital markets, with free economies, they run on faith. They run on belief. So the reason why Russia has not collapsed is only because people, investors, still have faith that Russia eventually can pay their bills. Yeah, there might be inflation, the prices might fluctuate. But what Putin has been doing, and he's got really good advisors, he has really good economists. And we can see every day, they're just moving stuff around on paper. And the reason why there's not a banking crisis and why there's not a flood of capital out of Russia is people still believe at some point Russia can pay their bills. They've got natural resources they're going to continue pulling out of the ground for decades. So they'll eventually will have the hard currency to pay back this debt, pay back this loan. And what Putin is doing currently is leveraging the wealth of his inner circle. He's leveraging the wealth of his oligarchs to stretch this out, to make this go as long as possible. There was this reveal 2 months ago from the vice president of Morgan Stanley showing that Putin has been forcing private Russian banks to give unsecured loans to defense contracting companies to continue producing for the war. You couldn't do that under communism. Under communism, you had to have the money to buy the stuff. But now we're inventing fake money from Russian commercial banks to give to defense companies that are not operating at a profit. They've not been operating at a profit for
Yeah,
over
yeah,
2 years to continue producing materials for the military, which obviously the military doesn't turn a profit. So, what is the risk? And the risk is the equity in these companies, the equity in these private Russian banks, the equity in these private Russian defense companies getting wiped out if they all of a sudden can't make their minimum payments on the debt. Well, who owns that equity? And it's Putin's inner circle. It's his oligarchs. When you say Russia has billionaires, they have billions on paper. That billion that these Russian oligarchs have is the equity in these banks, the equity in these companies that all collapse in on itself as soon as you can't make the minimum payments anymore. So for 3 years, the debt has been rising, the debt has been rising, the debt has been accumulating at all of these private companies as well as the state budget. And as long as Russia can still make their minimum payments, nothing collapses. This is the elasticity of free and capital markets, which Putin is leveraging at the moment for his war machine. This can't go on forever, but
yeah.
they've made it go on for 3 years. It's impressive, but yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, there are some of the countries which who still support Russia, like China, India. And they trade with many of the countries, and also
It's
like,
not charity. Like no country is going to help Russia out of the goodness of their heart.
yeah, but
Russia
they
has to
still
keep
trade
paying
like
them.
they
Yeah,
still buy their oil. They still like for the lower price than usual
sure.
for rupees, which you cannot convert easily, and then India sells that oil to European consumers.
That's a
Um,
good thing though, Dennis. Like
yeah,
if they're buying Russian oil at
uh-huh.
$50 and then selling it to the Europeans for 60 or 70, well, that's $10 to $20 in profit that Russia doesn't get. Like I'd rather India have the money than Russia have the money.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. So it will be like I think like with Soviet Union, right? So there was the Afghan war, which lasted for many many years, which was one of those factors that led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. Low oil prices, I don't know, war, instability of the Soviet regime. I think it could repeat actually. Well, at least we have
Low low oil prices, low energy or commodity prices. I've said this numerous times. I think you watch my videos, Dennis, but
sometimes.
Donald Trump is so incompetent, so bad at
Mhm.
everything. If he does trigger a massive recession in the United States, this will drag the world into recession. That causes the price for commodities and energy to fall. I mean, that could be devastating for Russia's economy, even if that's not Donald Trump's intended goal. It'll just be a consequence of his incompetence.
Yeah, they're going down actually. I checked out. They're little, but they're going down. So, what's your forecast? Maybe, yeah, it's no one knows, but maybe like we can guess how the war could end because I heard like Finland scenario, Korean scenario, Afghan scenario. So, what do you think?
U
Like in
Ukraine
Ukraine?
is too big for a
Hmm.
frozen conflict.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
the DMZ on the Korean Peninsula, you can only do that because it's only 300 kilometers. 300 kilometers for a buffer zone, a no-go zone. Okay. But you can't do that in Ukraine because Ukraine is the largest country in Europe. You can't have a 2,000 plus kilometer DMZ, if you count the border with
Hmm.
Belarus. Like this war can only end one way. Like it functionally can only end one way, and that's with Russia going back to their own country and staying there. Maybe Russia tries to hold on Crimea because that's a defensible small gap to get onto the peninsula. But the rest of it, this only ends when Russia stops trying to steal Ukrainian territory.
Mhm.
I think Ukrainians are going to continue fighting and going until Russia collapses or exhausts itself. And Putin's not going to stop until he's dead. So I think Putin has to die really for any kind of end for Russia or anything. Because like Putin can't accept defeats because he thinks he'll be removed or killed if Russia is defeated. But this is a no win protracted conflict. Even if everyone abandons their support for Ukraine, I still think Ukrainians would never stop resisting. They'd never stop guerrilla tactics or acts of terrorism or sabotage. Like, there is no winning for Russia when they're trying to steal people's sovereign land and committing horrible atrocities in the process. Like the family members and the people who have suffered the last 3 years or really 11 years, they're never going to stop. And I'm on their side.
So do you think that the war might stop with Putin's death? Like if he
Sure.
die,
Yes. I
you
think
you
I
think
think
so?
if
Okay.
oh yeah, if Putin were to die,
Mm-hmm.
there's no clear successor. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe Medvedev comes back, but there's going to be a power struggle, and when there's a power struggle and whoever comes to power, they're going to need a period of consolidation internally to make sure everyone is loyal to them. And how do you do that while you're fighting an active war? Like if Putin were to have a heart attack and die or be assassinated, whoever would try to take that seat would be looking for an immediate ceasefire.
Mm-hmm.
But to get a ceasefire, you need the other side to agree. And I think in a period of chaos, confusion, and disorder within the Russian ranks, that would be Ukraine's golden opportunity to try and press that advantage while there was chaos in the Kremlin. So yes, Dennis, there's a secret clock somewhere counting down to the day Putin dies. Nobody knows what the numbers on that clock countdown
Yeah, I hope
is,
we'll
but
still. Yeah, I hope
you
we'll still
you and
be
I
alive. Yeah, yeah.
you and I
Hopefully.
probably will still be making YouTube videos on that day,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you and
yeah,
I will
yeah.
wake up that morning to the news and we'll be like, "Holy
Yeah.
yes, we need to make a video right now because the day has finally come."
Yeah, I guess almost same for Trump. Maybe even sooner. Oh.
Uh, I mentioned this in my Q&A, and this,
Uh,
I don't want anyone to unalive or threaten the
yeah, yeah,
president
yeah,
of the United
yeah, of
States. I
course,
will
of
never
course.
go to that position despite anything he does. I want him to be removed from power through the appropriate and democratic process here in the United States, and then he needs to serve time in jail if he commits any kind of war crimes or crimes against humanity while invading Canada and Greenland. But Donald Trump is 78, obese, and has the most stressful job in the world. Donald Trump famously has done a lot of things correctly his entire life. Like, famously, he never drinks, he doesn't smoke, and he's a billionaire, so he's probably
Mm-hmm,
had pretty good
mm-hmm.
health care his entire life. And I think Trump's parents lived to be in their 90s, so he has good genes as far as susceptibility to cancer, disease, so forth. But he's still 78, obese, and has the most stressful job in the world. So I do think Trump is going to have health complications at some point in the next 4 years, and heart attack, stroke, cancer, whatever. He's going to be incapacitated, and I think politically retired at some point in the next 4 years.
Yeah, there is the high probability because definitely the job is really stressful. Could be the most stressful job out there. Uh, Joe Biden looked much better in his term at the very beginning. Then at the end, it was a disaster. Like he definitely lost physically, morally. So yeah, that's why probably they tried to replace him with Kamala, but it didn't work. Um, how about the security guarantees and about deployment of the peacekeeping forces to Ukraine? I heard like some contradicted information from Macron, Starmer. They say that they're willing to deploy. Then some of the media posted that they couldn't agree. They even told about the United Nations forces. And Zelensky told that it's total nonsense to deploy those. So do you think that it might work like those kind of the security guarantees, especially then they say that they're gonna send them to Lviv? Kiev, so to the areas far behind the front lines.
Well, Lavrov said under no circumstances would
Hmm.
Russia ever accept a ceasefire in which peacekeeping troops from NATO countries would go to Ukraine, implying that Russia would be okay if peacekeeping troops from the UN from countries they approve of, they'll be allowed to go to Ukraine to maintain the peace. So, if Ukraine is willing to accept peacekeeping forces through a UN mission from Belarus, Iran, and North Korea, those troops can go to Ukraine to help Ukraine. But no troops from the UK or Denmark or France. I do think if there is a 30-day temporary ceasefire, the UK and France and some other countries, they will send peacekeeping force. They'll deploy it. They were saying about being on the north bank of the Dnipro River somewhere.
Hmm.
I don't think these soldiers will actually fight if Russia
Yeah,
breaks the
yeah.
ceasefire. I think they'll
I
just be
also
there
think
as a
don't think
deterrent
so.
force. And I think France and the UK are open about this. They're saying we would send our peacekeeping forces just to try and deter Russia from attacking. It's not a final solution. It's not an answer for anything. It's a great gesture. I appreciate it, but it won't actually stop the war if the Russians want to keep going.
Yeah, I also don't think that. Today, by the way, there was the interview from the commander of the 3rd Assault Brigade, which is now already regiment, Ukrainian army. He told that this idea sounds not so good. It's better to, equip more Ukrainian soldiers who might fight for their own land, because now Ukraine can equip like actively on battle roughly 200,000 soldiers. So even though Ukraine has kind of the big army on the paper, but actively fighting for the weapons, for everything, for supplies. Ukraine keeps 200, 250,000 soldiers on the front lines, which is less compared to what Russia deployed to Ukraine. That's the reality, he says, and he stated like,
So
yeah,
that
it's
that number could be deceptive because for
mm-hmm,
every person fighting on the front lines, traditionally in militaries and in war, you need
mm-hmm,
three, four, or five people supporting that person.
yeah,
So
yeah,
in every military, you have your combat active forces, but then you have behind the front lines, you have your maintainers, your logisticians, you have you know, nurses and doctors like that are
engineers, yeah, yeah, yeah,
uniformed, so
everyone.
engineers. So yeah, I mean, there's supposed to be more people supporting the people on the front than on the front. So it could be, yeah, there's only about 250,000 guys rotating amongst the trenches doing the frontline work, and then everyone else is in a support role or support for those guys, making sure that they have everything that they need to fight effectively.
I understand. I understand. One and Russia is kind of aggressive still. They have resource. Do you think? And German intelligence recently came out with information that Russia is planning their generals. They're planning some of the special military operation against European countries in the coming 5 years or something like that. Do you believe that Russia might do it? Or like if the war, I think that if the war in Ukraine is over, Russia might do it. But if the war in Ukraine continues, Russia is just, you know, too much concentrated on that, spending their resources, and they cannot maintain two wars simultaneously and maybe have different opinion.
Russia needs to take control of the government in Kiev to do anything
Mm-hmm.
else.
Mm-hmm.
If Russia can't get control of the government in Kiev, like even if they never take all of Ukraine's territory, let's say, Russia makes it to Kiev, makes it to Odessa, links up with Moldova, and they just leave the western part of Ukraine as a rump landlocked state, they might be okay with that. But if they can't take Kiev, then no, they're not going to move on to the Baltics or
Mm-hmm.
Poland or
Mm-hmm.
Finland. Like Ukraine is the only thing preventing future wars right now. That this was the argument here in the United States for continuing military aid. If Russia succeeds in Ukraine, they'll Russify the people, and then they'll use Ukrainians as meat waves on the front lines against the Baltics. It's
Yeah,
transparent. Like it's obvious what they're doing. I saw this clip of a middle school in Melitopol in which you have Ukrainian children marching in the hallways in uniform, flying the Russian flag. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. It's
Putin
crazy.
Putin is getting these Ukrainian children ready for the next war in 5 years to fight and die for the Kremlin. Uh, and yeah, that's how empires, that's how the Russian Empire expanded for 500 years. You go into an area, you kill their leaders, you then Russify the people, you mobilize the men, and you send them to die against the next ethnic group on the Eurasian steppes. Like that's how Russia got so big,
Yeah,
killing, Russifying, and then using the people for the next war.
that's what they did with Chechnya, right? So now, yeah, we may laugh about Ahmad's battalion, their army, but still they're fighting there in Ukraine, in Kursk. So it's the military power, actually. So before there was,
Dennis, I got a question for you about
yeah,
Chechnya.
yeah, yeah.
Do you think, with corruption,
Hmm.
Kadyrov and his clan is in charge of Chechnya? Does more money flow into Chechnya from the Kremlin to keep them happy, or does Chechnya engage in corruption and they have to like pay royalties or loyalty to the Kremlin? Like money has to be going from the Kremlin to Chechnya, not Chechnya to the Kremlin, correct?
Yes, Chechnya is unable to produce enough money for its own budget. So the money is compensated basically for their own budget from Kremlin, from the
Do you think
main
over the last
distributor.
3 years, Putin has had to reduce the amount of money he's
I
paying
think
to the
so.
Kadyrov clan?
I think so, and
Do you,
that's why there were some clashes around Wildberries because Kadyrov, he was a friend with the guy. I forgot his name, something on
I
B.
remember this incident, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So he was a friend with this guy before for many years, and actually Kadyrov was uh we call it Krisha, so the roof. It means he was in share with the guy for this Valberis, and he was also a security manager of it. But then, there were some of the family issues, and they split that family of the Valberis founders, and they started to divide this business. And Kremlin also was involved here, and yeah, there was almost open confrontation. I was really surprised about it, honestly, because I thought that Kadyrov is more slaved to Kremlin and Putin. And now we have the article from the opposition media. It erupted just a couple of days ago saying that Kadyrov is looking for security for him and his family from the royal families in the Middle East, from Muslim countries. What countries, no one mentioned, but and they say that Kremlin knew about it, found out, and they're not okay with it. That Kadyrov is jumping over the head of Putin to negotiate his own privileges, and
I do think this is a
yeah,
serious fear of the Kremlin and Russia in general is the encroachment of Islam,
hmm,
in deeper into Russia. And is Kadyrov and Islam in the Caucasus, I think the Kremlin is okay with it as long as they're not collaborating or coordinating with the rest of the Muslim world. If they want to
yeah,
be
yeah,
Muslim and Islam in Russia, that's fine, but you have to be Russian first. But if, yeah, there's this, pan-Islamic cooperative between the Kadyrov clan and Saudi Arabia or the
yeah,
Emiratis, then I
yeah.
imagine, yes, the Kremlin would be very upset about that. And they'd view that as a threat to the Kremlin's rule over the Caucasus.
Also, Kadyrov is looking. They say in this article that Kadyrov is looking for the safe place where he can put his assets, his money, into those countries. He's looking like that because he's losing there in Russia everything with Wildberries and so on. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I think if there is something, the separation start. I think it will start in Russia. I think it will start from Chechnya, from Northern Caucasus. It was always hot there, in every sort of the Russian Revolution or collapse of the Soviet Union. It was the hottest place out there. Caucasus, it's yeah, the Russian Empire was fighting there for ages. So yeah, it was always like that.
My hope My hope was
Yeah.
Belarus. I was really hoping
Oh,
that the people of Belarus would do something when Lukashenko tried to have this latest election, but
oh no, they're too tight already. It's they cannot do anything already. They put
there were
them.
massive protests in
Yeah,
2019.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You
But after it, they provide more reparations, and people just afraid. Belarus is
Luk
not like. Hmm.
Lukashenko shut off the internet for 3 days for his election.
Well, it's
The
crazy.
entire internet in Belarus was shut off for 3 days to stop people from organizing or protesting or doing anything.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's definitely crazy. I'm just gonna go through the questions if we have
Sure.
something left. Oh, your personal questions for you. Uh, why did you start to speak about Ukraine? Because before you had the other topic, I think finances you had before, and how the things are going on your YouTube channel right now. Do you, do you think that Ukrainian topic becomes less interesting for people, or you feel more interest? So tell us about your YouTube career.
So the I separated from the Air Force officially the same week that Russia invaded Ukraine,
Mm,
February of 2022. I was on terminal leave, so I hadn't been doing my job since December. I had already moved to Vegas and rented a house, and I decided YouTube was going to be my full-time job. And yeah, I was talking about finance and investing. And the reason why I made a video talking about Ukraine is I was holding call options on General Dynamics. General Dynamics is a defense company here in the United States, and the stock price was spiking in response to the news. You know, if you think there's going to be a war in the short term, people will start putting more money in defense stocks, thinking they'll get more contracts. So I said, okay, guys, well, Russia might invade Ukraine this week. Let's talk about it. And I pulled up a map and I butchered all the names. Like I didn't really know that much about
hmm.
Ukraine, but I felt like I knew a little bit more about Russia given my job working with nuclear weapons in the United States Air Force. So my normal finance content, I was getting maybe 10,000 views a video, and this one-off video talking about Russia and Ukraine got 30,000 views. It got
Hmm.
3 times as much. And when you're a social media influencer or a content creator, you kind of start drifting towards where the views are. So for a couple months, I was trying to have it both ways. I was alternating between making my normal finance and investing trading options videos and then talking about what's going on with the war. And I was expecting the war to be over soon. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I was expecting Russia to realize that the people of Ukraine were not going to surrender their capital. And then Russia was going to pull back, saying, I don't know, they'll make something up." But I didn't think it would turn into a protracted, frozen 3-year conflict. Uh, but with my YouTube channel, my audience doubled. I was at 80,000 subscribers, and within 2 months, I was at 160. And I realized more people were watching me and subscribed to me to learn information about Russia and Ukraine than to learn about debit spreads on Apple stock. So I told my original audience, I'll come back to you guys once this war is over, and that was 3 years ago. And I'm still talking about Russia and Ukraine. I think it's interesting, all the people like you and me, the people who are dedicated to talking about Russia and Ukraine on YouTube, they were talking about other things. They just happen to have a platform. They happen to have the basic knowledge of lighting, cameras, microphones in order to provide this information and this service to people looking for good information on YouTube. What was the second half of your question again?
Yeah, how the situation is right now? Is it the
Oh,
same?
for
Yeah,
views,
for the
engagements.
views engagement, yeah.
I'm at the point where I don't care about my views in that I'm
Mm,
not chasing views. I feel like I'm providing a service at this point to people who are emotionally invested in the story and the conflict. And even if my views keep going down and down, like I'm not going to stop supporting Ukraine or opposing Russia. I'm going to keep making these videos until there's some kind of resolution to the war. So I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated by views. I'm not motivated by influence. I just want to have more reach and more influence to affect what's happening in the world. Um, but yeah, I mean, I see the analytics, I see the data, and there are spikes when something newsworthy happens.
Mm-hmm.
My channel goes crazy and then it settles back down. So, for example, in Syria, when the government fell, and the rebel
Yeah,
forces
yeah.
took Damascus, that was a good 2 weeks for my YouTube channel. I was getting like 700,000 views a video, but now I'm down to a resting rate of about 250 or 300.
I remember you was busy by the time. You was like for 2 days, I think you went somewhere. I don't remember, but it was like a hot topic, and you came out saying you are going somewhere. I thought, oh,
Yeah, I went back to Wisconsin to see my
yeah, yeah, yeah,
parents,
yeah.
but I understand that people are busy. People have full-time jobs, they have families, they have other things they want to do, and they check in. They come back
Mm-hmm,
to my
mm-hmm.
channel and they'll watch a video if something big or crazy is happening in the news. Like I know if the Kersh Bridge was destroyed tomorrow, that video would get 500,000, 600,000 views. So for all the people out there who watch me once or twice a month, thank you. Thank you for remaining engaged with the level you think you can engage, with the time you have, because I know your time is valuable. There's lots of fantastic people on YouTube that you could be watching and listening to. And if you choose me, even once a month, I appreciate that. And it's an honor to share my time with you. So that's my general attitude about my
I
YouTube
see.
career at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much humble and generous attitude you have, Jake. Awesome.
It's the only way to sleep at night, Dennis. To not be humble, to not be generous, that means you're arrogant and selfish. And if you're arrogant and selfish, you're probably not going to have a good life. And I'm trying to have the best life I can right now.
I see the guy in the White House. He's arrogant, but he's okay, I think, with that.
Do you think he's
After,
happy? Do you
I
think
don't
Donald
know.
Trump in life in general is a happy
I
person?
never saw him laughing actually. Sometimes smiling with this artificial made smile, but never laughing, which is strange. I would find it.
No, he doesn't have normal human emotions.
I
Like
see.
yeah, in the last 10 years since he's been running for president,
Mm,
have I ever seen a genuine outburst of emotion from Donald Trump, whether crying or laughing? And no, the dude never laughs.
mm-hmm.
Like nobody says, in spontaneous comments that catches him off guard, that's humorous, and then he'll just jovially laugh or whatever. Like it doesn't happen because he doesn't experience human emotion like you and I do. It's very bizarre to observe, but
I think this real estate business, there are sharks there. It destroys humanity. You need to have a special mindset to go into that. And yeah, I may understand his background and that's behavior. Yeah,
he's from Wall Street. He,
yeah,
you
well,
know, Trump Tower is in mid Manhattan. Wall Street is lower Manhattan. But I mean, he still knows all those people. Have you ever seen Have you ever seen the movie American Psycho with Christian Bale?
uh, I know that movie, but no, I haven't seen it. I haven't watched it yet.
I would recommend it. It's a
Mm-hmm,
disturbing movie. It came out, I think, in 1999 or 2000.
mm-hmm,
But it's about a typical trader on Wall Street, and these people are psychopaths. And
mm-hmm.
that's who Donald Trump has been friends with and associating himself with for his entire life. And these are the people that Donald Trump wants approval of. Like, I think Trump always had insecurity in New York that the other elites, that the other billionaires and wealthy of Manhattan didn't view him as impressive. He's
Mm-hmm.
felt massively insecure about himself his entire life. And I don't know. I don't understand him. I don't understand people who worship him. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it's just like we live in a dream then there. After those signal scandals, then people were then you I thought before they behave like that on the camera, but then you read those messages they wrote, like you understand that this is who they are. It is crazy, Jake. It is crazy. Like, yeah, I thought in Ukraine we have like clown politicians, but in the United States, wow. Well, hopefully everything changes for better. Um, Jake, I don't,
There
I,
will be a transition period. That's the best way I can put it.
yeah, we are evolving as humans. I hope we're not gonna face like very terrible circumstances with the Third World War, and we're gonna survive all of those steps and elect normal leaders elsewhere. Okay, Jack, I run out of questions. If you have maybe something to say, I don't know, to the audience.
Continue supporting Ukraine. I understand the news, uh, especially concerning American politics. It's alarming. It's shocking. The American people will respond. This summer, the protests and the rioting are going to be bad. The way that Donald Trump is going to respond to the protesting and rioting is going to be bad. And this is an internal American process we have to get through. But this won't affect what Russia is going through and what Russia has been going through the last 3 years with their economy, with their demographics, with their internal problems and division. Russia is very beatable. I mean, objectively, if their economy gets worse every day, they're more beatable today than they've been in the last 3 years. And if the European partners have the political will to increase supports, Russia can be defeated this year. We need some kind of economic or political collapse inside of Russia in order for their military to be defeated on the battlefield. We don't know when that day will be, but it will happen. And if you've come this far, if you've been invested, participating, volunteering, donating, engaged for 3 years, stick with it. You're going to be glad you did when that victory day comes.
And guys, uh, there is the link for Jake's Bro fundraise for his video where you can go for the fundraise and you can support Ukraine by his initiative. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dennis. Take care.
Thank you, Jake. Ciao.